Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Noe with SpeakEasy HR. Welcome in. It is August 5th, episode 3. I am your host, producer, editor. I'm one-man show over here, and I have a great guest today to talk about an awesome topic in motivation. So we are live on YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you are watching live, would love to hear where you are watching from. If you were able to watch the last episodes, they are on Spotify, they are on YouTube. So make sure to go and subscribe to those channels. So if you are interested in catching up, if you do miss any episodes, they will be all on Spotify on demand and YouTube, along with my LinkedIn as well. So SpeakEasy HR is sponsored by Payroll Partners. If you are in the market to get just an evaluation on your payroll HR services, we can do a lot for businesses from 2 employees up to 2,000. So check us out. We are local to the Cincinnati area and would love to connect with you. So Payroll Partners is the sponsor of SpeakEasy HR. Lance, welcome.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I've been looking forward to this for a couple months. So glad the day has finally arrived.
Yeah, we have been talking for a little bit about your topic, and looking at what you do for a business in your area. I think it's just very fascinating. So we're definitely going to get into that a little bit. But you're bringing a really fun topic today, and it's motivation. Motivation really applies to a lot of different people, not just people in HR. And, so when you brought up this topic to me, I was really intrigued, because I think the way that you can dissect motivation, it can be work related, it can be family related, it can be, in sports, being the underdog in a team, or some common, sports environment, being an underdog. So we're going to get into all that. And so I'm just checking to see if the chat is on. I don't see any chat yet. It says read only, but that's okay. We'll dive into this a little bit and make sure that it is working. So anyway, Lance, why don't you tell everybody, what you're into right now, and Coffee with Champions as your company. So I'll let you talk a little bit about what you've been into, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I have to start with my wife. We've got to start there first, right? So yeah. I've been with my wife, Jessica, for 32 years now. We met in high school. She was 14 and I was 17, which sounds terrible as an adult when we say it out loud, but been married for 27 years, and she's awesome. She's also my business partner too, and she's a co-founder of Coffee with Champions. A little bit about me, kind of the backstory before I talk about Coffee with Champions is I've only had 2 jobs in life. My first one, I spent 10 years in commercial construction management and helped run a crew about 100 people. So I learned a lot of lessons there about people and leadership and management and all that kind of thing. 2006, I went out on my own, started my own company, which basically revolved around consulting management. And I've been doing that ever since. So about 18 years now. 2021 was the height of COVID, where the story kind of takes a turn. And as you can probably remember, as society, we weren't very nice to each other. And there was a lot of strong opinions on, depending on which side of the political spectrum you fell on, or what your beliefs in vaccines, no vaccines, and things like that. And I just thought I just saw families and things like that just really get torn apart by their beliefs in something. And I don't know. I thought, what can I do about this? So I decided to try a little experiment with our own clients and put a bunch of leaders in the room and talk about challenging topics and see if we can find a way to start empathizing with each other and seeing how the other person views without, you're right, you're wrong, I hate you, get out of my life type thing. And so I really didn't expect it to go very far. And like I said, that was 3 years ago. But surprisingly, it did take off. And since that time, that's morphed into Coffee with Champions. And we've held over 400 workshops all over the Dayton region. We have 2 different versions of it. We have a public version, which is held at a lot of different chambers of commerce every single week. And then we have a private version, which is held at businesses for their employees. So it revolves around personal growth, professional growth, and just how to communicate better. I've been doing the consulting thing for a lot of years, almost 2 decades now. The Coffee with Champions has brought a new dynamic to me, a new passion, and it's turning into where I see myself going for the next decade or so. So it's been pretty awesome. I've been very blessed by it all.
Yeah, no, I think when I first met you and talked about just your approach to training, because I was trying to look at that internally where I work, and trying to figure out the best approach to training in a small work environment for a small business. And so when I started connecting to some of the chambers around, and then I got introduced to you and Coffee with Champions, I was like, huh. And so, I think the approach is so impactful because, and maybe talk about that, because you are doing it. Anybody that is facilitating it, it's every week. It's not just once a month or once a quarter. You are bringing a topic to a group of individuals, whether it's a chamber, whether it's a business, a group of managers, coworkers, and you're bringing up a topic which normally is like the one today, motivation. It's a one-word kind of topic. So, what got you into that approach being a weekly workshop or weekly training?
So there's 2 things there. The first one is I kind of have this philosophy that the answer is always in the room. So no matter who's in the room, the answer is there. And I've been to a lot of training, and I see retention is usually very low. We go to a training, we get a waterfall of information, and do we actually go back and actually make any meaningful change? Typically, right. No. Right. So this approach is different because it's not somebody telling the group how they need to behave. It's the group themselves discussing and sharing their best practices, right, for winning in business and life. So that's kind of the synopsis of how this thing works. Frequency is different. So in the public version, it's every week. If you're in the private side of things, you can kind of adjust that schedule, and you can go, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever. But we do give out a new workshop every single week on a variety of topics all over the place: motivation, social media, leadership, case studies. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. So again, we're going to dive into this topic in a few minutes. But if you do want to connect with Lance, Coffee with Champions is his company. You can scan the QR code if you are watching live. If you are watching on demand in the future, it's www.coffeewithchampions.com, and you can get a whole lot more information there. Connect with Lance and his wife, and it's a great learning to facilitate training in your company, if you are not fully dedicated to training in your company. So check them out. And I definitely recommend them to anybody looking for some, extra training. So, all right, Lance, we're going to get into something before we start your topic.
Bring it.
The envelope icebreaker. And I do see Will did comment on LinkedIn, so it does look like it is connected to LinkedIn. So last episode, we had someone in the audience watching pick the number. So if you are, we'll give people just a couple minutes or 10 seconds to pick a number 1 through 15. Whoever puts a number 1 through 15, Lance, you're going to have to see what that question is. You have the questions. Some of them are probably easier than others. So I'm going to see just for a few seconds if someone will put a number 1 through 15. If not, you can pick your own number. But I did ask you beforehand if you wanted the audience to pick. And you said, yeah, let's do it. So
let's do it.
1 through 15. Will picked 9.
9.
Will, thank you.
Thank you, Will. I hope you were nice to me.
All right. Okay, this one's not too bad. What is your favorite restaurant, cocktail, or movie?
Okay, so I did get the questions ahead of time because some of them were kind of like I had to think about them. But I'm going to answer all 3 of those because I did think about it. So my favorite restaurant, probably my go-to, that's just always reliable, is Coldwater Cafe in Tip City. So that's just it's been around for a long time. It's usually won some awards, and it's good food. It's great service. The service is always great. So I love to try new places, but Coldwater Cafe. Cocktail is probably be a mojito would be my favorite cocktail. And I think, did you ask movie? Was movie on the list?
Yeah, restaurant, cocktail, or movie. So you can
I'll go for the bonus round, and I'll say Braveheart. So that's probably one of my favorite, go get 'em movies.
Okay, that's a good list. So since Will picked that number, would you like to pick a number, one of the other numbers, just to maybe give yourself a chance to get a tougher question or another one?
Sure, let's go with number 1.
Number 1. Well, I switched around the numbers from last week, and I know what's in number 1, which we're going to have to do another one because this is the one from last time. What is the greatest rapper of all time? This is becoming
seriously though. That's hard because I don't know. I watched last week's episode, and I like Scott's answer. He said Eminem, and I'm like, yeah, I know Eminem, so we'll just say Eminem because there was a movie and all that stuff. So
yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, good. Well,
you got a hard one for me there?
A hard one?
Yeah.
I don't know what's in these. I just swapped around them. I'm just going to take number 10. I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to do number 10.
All right, let's do it.
Just to see what's in. Whoops, that's 8. Let's see. Number 10. Oh, how about this? What sport would you compete in if you were in the Olympics?
I would go for running. I'm not a natural built runner, but I've ran a couple marathons. I really enjoy running. So
there you go.
I would totally go with running.
There you go. Well, Will is watching on LinkedIn, and he put Run DMC is the greatest rapper of all time. So Will, thanks for being involved. Or the Beastie Boys. I do have to say the Beastie Boys is one of my favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot about them, but yeah.
I will answer this. Obviously, playing golf growing up through college. So glad golf is actually part of the Olympics. I think there's going to be some new Olympic games when it comes up in 2028. I heard breakdancing and flag football are going to be added to the next Olympics, but definitely golf, super competitive in golf. My oldest son's playing in high school. He's actually at a golf tournament right now. So definitely golf. It was fun to watch Scotty Scheffler actually come back and win yesterday. So anyways, well, thanks for being such a good sport with that, Lance.
Absolutely.
All right. So getting into motivation, I think this is, again, such an intriguing topic because when you are an individual and you're growing up as a child, motivation, it's a skill set that I think a lot of people easily find motivation in their lives. maybe because of their upbringing and their family, and just having the motivation to be in a better situation than their parents were, if they weren't financially stable and they had to have 3 jobs. And so, like, just looking at that word and what motivation means to people, because managers watching, I think that's the one thing that, if you want to be a better manager, you have to know what motivates each of your team members. Someone that's in their 20s is not motivated by the same things that somebody in their 40s might be. So let's get into this topic a little bit. And if anybody has any questions, I will leave the chat up. So we will be watching that and monitoring any questions that do come in or comments. So please, if you're watching live, try to comment, because this is something everybody can learn from. And so, Lance, start with part 1 here, and let's get into the motivation problem.
Yeah. So the way I want to approach this and is I want to outline the problem first, and then I want to share my story of screwing up really bad, royally severe failure. And then the third part of this is I want to take it from just this concept to action, which is where you see this paper back here on my wall. That's the paper that does something for me every single week. So I want to talk about that paper at the very end. So that's where I want to go with this. So, but I want to start like you said, with the problem of motivation. And I think it stems from, if I can be blunt, life sucks. I mean, it's really hard sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's all this just crap in the world. And if you look at the news, there's war, there's potential war, there's World War III, there's politics, there's inflation, the cost of groceries, assassination attempts. It's not a very inspiring place today. And the other part of this is there's been these statistics around for years that say, and I kind of want to focus on the workforce, that say only a third of the workforce is truly fully engaged. So only a third of the people in America are fully engaged at their jobs. So that means 2/3 are not. That means 6 out of 10 people or 7 out of 10 people are not, they're just going through the motions at work. And they may even be, this thing called quiet quitting, where they're just, looking for another job, doing the bare minimum, can't wait to get out of here. And I just think that's terrible. We spend the bulk of our lives at work. And if we're surrounded by a group of people, maybe even ourselves, that don't want to be there and not inspired, I mean, the consequences are all negative. Low morale, grumpy people, low productivity, leads to low profits, affects the bottom line, affects all kinds of stuff. Like, there is nothing positive that comes out of being disengaged at work. So that to me is the main meat of it. So the main question that I want to focus on today, that I want to ask, is, how do we live in peak motivation? Is it even possible? Is it possible to spend your entire life just being fully motivated, being fully inspired? And I think it is, to a point, so that it's not just about grit and determination, because I think that's something different. That's coming from, just pain, where you're just going to be determined to make it through. Where I think there's a positive motivation that we can work towards that just makes life fun. And then it transforms all those negatives that I was talking about at work. So, if we can dream about having a fully engaged group of coworkers, not just to make money, but to just enjoy going to work, because most of us have to work, and it should be fun. It really should be. It should be enjoyable. And I think there's a few things we can do to make that happen. So that's what I want to talk about. But that's the main problem. What have you seen out there in that regards?
I think a lot of people over the last few years, the productivity level might have gone down, because they know that companies are suffering with finding good people to hire, and they know that the company needs them, and so they might just do the bare minimum. And it's like, if you're doing the bare minimum, okay, like, you keep your job, you have okay performance reviews, your manager's like, hey, you're doing well. But, if your company is challenging you to do better, to get certified, to really, grow in your role, how much motivation are you going to have, and what's going to motivate you? Is it a performance review with a 10% raise? Is it getting more vacation time, more work-life balance, having more time to go to your kids' sporting events, going on more vacations? So I think there are people out there that, like you said, they go through the motions, they go to work, they do the bare minimum, and they just kind of fly under the radar, and they don't really stir up the pot. They don't create gossip, or they're not morale boosters, but they're not really changing the morale and the culture. They don't want to be a manager. They don't, want to take on more responsibility. And that's okay. There are people out there that love their job, and they, go into a position and just are content, and it might become stagnant, and they might be like, well, I'm getting bored. Should I ask to do more work, or should I just do my job and act busy? So I think people that are motivated in their position, you as a manager can see that. And if you have open dialogue and good communication, and have good one-on-one meetings and stuff like that, you're going to know if they're motivated or not. If you give them a project, you're going to see what kind of effort they put into it, if they're motivated to really impress you as their manager. So, I think it's getting back to where it might have been pre-COVID, with people understanding that their job is not like 100% safe, that companies will do the right thing when it comes to what's best in the company's interest, to find better people to hire, and really either move people into a different role, give them feedback to improve, or decide to, end the employment relationship. So, again, there's industries that are still struggling, that people are short-staffed, and, so I have not been in every industry, and I'm just going back to the positions I've been in with my last few, roles. And so again, pre-COVID, there were not as many people unemployed. Then we went through COVID, and now, there's still a lot of people unemployed, and it's like they're not even motivated to go back to work. So I think it's just still an interesting time, but I think it's getting better.
Yeah. I think so too, and I think things are leveling out a little bit. It was a traumatic time period, I think, in everyone's life. But the more distance we can put behind us on that, I think the better things are. My take on this whole motivation thing is, it is a broad, huge topic. And, my solution is one tool from my own life experience. And, right. Maybe not everybody can relate to this, but, this was kind of my story and the way I learned. And I have seen this play out successfully with a lot of people. But I do want to make the disclaimer that there's a lot of solutions out there and a lot of different types of people. But I believe it's a broad solution. And my solution is, you have to have the correct, full vision. So correct, complete, right, full vision. And I know that sounds maybe even a little cliche or something, but if I can take a second and tell my own story. When I was 22 years old, I'd been dating Jessica for 5 years, and we got married, and we bought a house, an old house that didn't even have any plumbing in it. So I have no idea why she even agreed with this marriage and everything, but we had an outhouse, and it was an old schoolhouse. But anyway, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. And there was this chance encounter where I kind of figured out where I wanted to go. And I met someone, and they kind of helped me see some things. And at 22 years old, my vision, my plan for my life and work was, I wanted to be successful, and then I wanted to teach others how to be successful. And the funny thing about that was, I had no concept of what success was. I was not successful. I had probably $2 in the bank account, and I had screwed up a lot. But I had this dream and this vision that kind of came alive on the inside of me. And I spent the next 11 years just really driving to make that dream come to pass. So I had these financial goals I wanted to hit by the time I was 30. And then by the time I was 40, I wanted to retire and teach others how to do it. Looking back, it sounds a little arrogant and egotistical, but hey, I was 22 and this is what I wanted to do. And I spent 11 years just grinding it out, following this vision and this goal of who I wanted to be in life and where I wanted to go. But ultimately, it nearly cost me everything. So the vision went like this. If you can see, it went up and I was excited and I loved it the first couple of years. Then it started plateauing out and started getting terrible. And then the last several years, I didn't want to be alive anymore. And I'd accumulated a mountain of debt. We're talking over $1 million in debt. I had ruined all of my relationships, including that of my spouse. And I didn't want to be alive anymore. I mean, it was really, really terrible. It was the darkest spot of my life. And I just completely ended up burnout and fried and unmotivated. So somehow I survived. I'm here today. And I had another chance encounter, a miraculous encounter that kind of saved my life. And, that's been 16 years now. So I have the benefit of hindsight to look back and say, where did I miss it? And what did I learn? And there's three things that I wrote down that I really missed it on. And I reflect back on often. The first one is I tried to do it alone. Like I literally, I had this idea and I was like, man, I got the grit and determination power. I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need any help. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. So I was just, I was running forward, just essentially half blind. The second part of this was, I think people struggle with this and this is me included, but struggle with this long-term motivation because they have an incomplete or an incorrect view of where they want to go. It's kind of like you're on a train and you're just chugging along and the miles are flying by. But what if you're on the wrong train? What if you're on the wrong track and you're going the wrong direction? So I think that was a problem. And then the third one is that vision has to be constantly adjusted. It's got to be intentionally designed. Like it's just not something, there's a lot of vision workshops out there. I've been to a lot of this stuff. There's all these things about, figuring out what you want to do with your life. But the problem is you have to keep maintaining it. You have to keep adjusting it. And it's like this analogy I like to say, the JFK Memorial in Virginia. So after his assassination, they created the eternal flame there. And it didn't happen overnight. They sat down and they said, hey, we want to create this eternal flame. And it took them years to design the system and create this flame that was going to last forever. It wasn't just something they did, on a whim. And then that flame has to be maintained all the time to make sure it doesn't go out. The equipment has to be cleaned and all that. I think motivation and vision and all that is kind of like, we got to have this internal fire on the inside of us. And this internal fire has to be maintained. It's just not set it and forget it, which is what I did when I was 22. I sat the vision. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to keep going until it kills me. I mean, I didn't think that was going to happen, but that's what almost happened. So that, to me, that's kind of the solution is you got to have this picture of where you want to go in life. And it has to be inspiring. It has to bring hope. It has to get you excited. And it's all about how you view the world, what your perspective is. And, people oftentimes don't know where they fit in the vision of a company. The vision of the company is maybe not conveyed, or it's not big enough, or it doesn't have enough room for them to come in and grow their talents and gifts. And I think just that vision of where am I going and how am I going to get there is so critically important, because if you don't know where you're going or you're not feeling fulfilled, you're just going to be depressed and you're going to be discouraged and you're going to be the 2/3 that are disengaged at work. So that's my speech.
Yeah. 2/3 of people are disengaged. It's crazy. And I know that has been about the same statistic for a while. I know it's gone up a little bit, but if you look around your team and you look around the company you work with, 2/3 of those people are not engaged, and they are probably either looking for another job, open to other opportunities. And so again, it's so critical for a company to have that clear vision for every role. I know some businesses are not equipped to do that as well as others, and that's a part of what HR's responsibility is, to help, facilitate that vision and create that so that people understand that there is a future opportunity and a future for them within the company, that may help them progress, earn more money, take on a different position. So having that clear vision is so important. So same with somebody's personal life, looking at something within your personal life, whether it's spouse relationship, kids, family and friends, just like being motivated. It really, sometimes a lot of it depends on the people that are around you to really help you through that and find that motivation. So it's, again, there's a lot of factors to it, and there's no perfect formula, but thanks for sharing that story, Lance. That's really interesting that you had to go through that. And, now looking back, it's kind of like, did it all happen for a reason? You may not be where you are today, but
yeah, I definitely wouldn't be here. There was a point where I was like, I'm not going to make it to 40. I know I'm not, I'm 49 now, so I'm way past that. But there was a lot of years I thought, I'm not going to make it that far. I had some health issues, and just, I was being very reckless, and I didn't care if I lived or died. So, which is so crazy looking back, but
yeah. So moving into part 3, the practical application for motivation and how that works for every individual. What's your take on that piece of it?
Yeah. So number one's a problem, motivation. The solution, I think, is where do you fit in the world? Where are you going, and who are you? Yeah. And in that vision, seeing yourself, like we all have a perception of who we are. So there's an identity component in there as well. Whether that's a false identity of who you really are, it's a limiting idea. I believe there's just greatness in everybody. That's why I love our Coffee with Champions program. There's actually a quote, and I meant to write this down, but Ken Blanchard wrote The 1 Minute Manager, which is one of my favorite management books because of its simplicity. But something along the lines that people are often disguised as losers, but you just got to believe in them enough to find the winner in them, or something like. I totally butchered that, but anyway, that's the point. We go on what the outside perception is, but I truly believe there's a lot of winners out there that are disguised as losers, and they're really not. They're really just champions that need a little prompting, a little belief in them, and something like that. So anyway, vision to me is ambiguous. I mean, you sit down, you write it, you go through the workshop, whatever it is, you put the goal on the wall, and you're excited for a couple of days, and you're like, I'm going to be there. And then life smacks you upside the head, and it just is all for nothing. So how do you keep the fire alive on the inside of you? Like I talked about the eternal flame, there's something we got to do on a consistent basis, because if we don't, we'll forget where we're going. We'll forget who we are. Right. Social media, news, all that crap will start piling up, or, bad things at work, or, grumpy coworkers will all suck the life out of us. So what I do, the piece of paper that's back here, is every Monday I ask myself 3 questions. And this is my way of maintaining my own internal flame. I have 3 questions I ask. And these 3 questions, I use a program called Basecamp that runs basically our whole business management wise. But every Monday it sends me these 3 questions. And it says, Lance, I got them wrote down here so I don't butcher them. But every Monday it says, who am I going to be? So Lance, who are you going to be? I do this every week. So I'm asking this question on a weekly basis. It's saying, who am I going to be this week? Lance, who do you want to be this week? So I'm actually writing out who I'm going to be. Like, this is the vision of my future. This is my identity. I'm not doing it by accident. I'm saying this is your. In fact, let me take this off the wall so I can read what I wrote today. So I'll be transparent here for everybody out there. And this is personal. I don't usually share it, but I don't think there's anything terrible on here. Anyway, who am I going to be this week? So the number one thing I put was I was going to be present for my wife. I've been really busy the last 2 weeks, and I have just I've felt like a loser. And even when I'm with her, I'm not with her, because I've had so many things going on at work, and I was trying to get a lot of stuff done. So one of my answering that question is being present for my wife. The second one was to only do work that moves the needle. So sometimes we can get caught going to other, distractions and things like that. So the second one was I only want to do work that moves the needle. That's who I'm going to be. Second question is, where am I going? Once again, I'm doing this every single week. So I'm doing this basically in a week timeline. If I was doing this once a month, it'd be where am I going this month? But for me, it's where am I going this week? So one of the things I put on my list was to get back on track with balance. So I was very unbalanced the last 2 weeks. So that means work, fitness, working out. I had supposed to have 5 workouts last week. I had 2. Time off, and then reading. And when I get tired, I don't read. I watch TV. So that's in the big grand scheme, the big picture, the big vision of who I want to be. That's the little thing that I need to remind myself, hey, I was slipping there and I need to get back on track. And then the second one in that was see the big picture again. What's the dream? And we're going to the Global Leadership Summit on Thursday. So that's a big nationwide conference that we're actually going to the remote satellite in Miamisburg, Dayton. But that hearing from a bunch of other leaders helps reignite and remind you of where you're going.
Yeah.
So first question is, who am I going to be? Second question is, where am I going? Third question, and to me, the most important, what personal pitfalls do I need to watch out for? So where are the weaknesses? Where are the things that are going to trip me up? So for me, it's working too much without breaks, getting sucked in. And the second one is this crazy fly that's flying around here. No, the second one is living in the gap. So there's this book called The Gap and the Gain, and it's a profound book, but it's basically living in the gap is like looking at all the things you don't have instead of being thankful for all the things you do have. It doesn't mean that you're not motivated to keep going and achieving, but you got to be thankful along the way, and you got to look back and be content. So my big application is asking myself these 3 questions, which I call my declarations, which is who am I going to be, where am I going, and what do I got to watch out for? And that's the real action that I take to keep me on course. And there's I do this every Monday. In 10 years, there's 500 Mondays, 520 some Mondays. That's a lot of Mondays to make those declarations to make sure I keep going. Keeps me inspired. It's preventive medicine from all the negative of the world or all the bad things that happen, or maybe my own failures.
Yeah. So. No, I love that. Do you every week write down all of this and then store it? So do you go back like 6 months from now and see what those answers were? Like how do you track it week by week other than just writing it down? And
so I'm a huge Basecamp fan, but and Basecamp's a software. But Basecamp tracks that. It's just a weekly question. And that weekly question, I can just scroll through the list to see what I was worried about or whatever. I mean, it's a cool historical thing to look back on. And I can print out any one of them. I can see what progress I've made. I can see maybe where I was at a certain time or whatever. And this is just one tool that I use for the motivation factor. But you got to maintain it, is my view. You got to maintain the vision. If you don't, you're going to lose it. At least I did.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I was checking the chat just to see if any questions came through while we were talking, and we did have a question from Will, who is still watching. Thanks, Will. His question is, would it be fair to assess that each of our individual motivations comes from our desire to move forward and improve on today's circumstance?
Would it be fair to assess each of our individual? I think so. And I'm glad that Will asked that question. Will was actually at Coffee with Champions last week. We were in the same conversation where we were talking about vision. And so I'm glad he's on there. And I think what I love about Coffee with Champions is you always learn something from the other people that are there, and everybody. This looks different to everybody. There's no right or wrong answer here, but I totally think that it would be fair to say what Will's saying there.
Well, I got it up here. Champions adjust, y'all. That's huge. I just look at that all the time, and I say it to my kids. I say it to my wife. I'm like, champions adjust. And sometimes when you're thinking about a situation, it's like, how are you going to react? And is it going to be something where you're going to step up and find the motivation to get through it. Take the opportunity to either improve yourself, to improve the situation, and understand, I'm a firm believer of things happen for a reason, but like if it's a tough situation, and whether it's financially, you get into a car accident, unexpected things happen, health wise, and it may be for you, your family, coworkers, but like, when you step up in a situation in the heat of the moment, it's like, that's where the individual motivation is created. So what brought about the name, and I don't know if you've brought that or talked about it, but the name Coffee with Champions.
That's a good question. I don't know that I've ever talked about it before, but it kind of goes back to that thing I was saying about, I believe that I want to be around a group of winners, and I just want to have a conversation. It's basically a conversation with winners. And I believe that everybody, no matter what they've done in life, no matter what their job title is, no matter how old they are, what their education level, I believe everybody is a winner in some area. Yeah. So when we have Coffee with Champions, we're having coffee with winners, because every single person in that room is a winner. And that goes for even businesses and employees. I've seen some people that on the outside, you would think, they're the problem child of the group. And I've heard some pretty wise things come out of their mouth. Yeah. That, if we didn't put this program in place where it was a safe space where everybody was an equal around the table, I would have never learned that from them or in general. So yeah. I think that's the whole premise of Coffee with Champions is, I talked about those three things of not asking for help, and, not having a full vision, and then not maintaining the fire. I mean, that's the three things we solve at Coffee with Champions. We are bringing the wisdom, and we're bringing the vision that each one of us are sharing. And, it's just like that little bit of vulnerability. We're all trying to live a good life, and we're all dealing with the same crap. It may look a little different and be individualistic to all of us, but, I think together we're better together as a group than we are trying to do all these things alone, because this is hard stuff to do it alone.
Yeah. And just when you and I went through the exercise in the past, bringing up questions in the topic and having a dialogue, whether it's with just another person, whether it's a group, it's really impactful. And it was just me and you talking last time. And so, I think really anybody that is watching this that really feels like they have improvements to make within their organization from a training standpoint, or if they're in a small networking group or something. I think you've seen the success with the chambers and working with them and the business owners and the folks within the chambers, and I think it's going to only become more and more of a popular concept. So I wish you all the best with it, because I think it's a great concept. So obviously, if you need more information, reach out to Lance. You can go to their website, Coffee with Champions. And we do have, and I forgot to mention at the beginning, we have a secret code for this week. And Speakeasy's back in the day had a secret code to get into. And it was during Prohibition. No one was really able to drink. And so they really wanted to give the public a place to go, and having a speakeasy to get into, having a secret code or a phrase or something to get into it. So Lance has a secret code, and this is going to be for 3 people. The first 3 people after this to contact Lance is going to get, if they mention the code SUGAR, you're going to get the free month of Coffee with Champions, which is a $500 value to use for your team. So you can contact Lance at his email or on LinkedIn. So again, the first 3 people to contact Lance will get that. And all you have to do is put in the subject line SUGAR.
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 Just a little. You don't want too much.
Just a little. That's good. I love it. What did Will say? He had another comment. Coffee with Champions is a fun, rewarding, and engaging experience, unique to conversation that is a step beyond networking. Yeah. So Will has seen it and firsthand working with Lance and seeing what that can do for a small group. How did you come up with, or where did you find the resources to develop your weekly topics?
That's a great question. And this is one why I love this so well is that I'm just curious. It just naturally, like, I'm just curious about life and people. And when I'm out and about reading or seeing things or watching a movie, I'd be like, oh, that's it. I ask a main question of the week, and I just want to know, how would people answer this? So I have hundreds of these, I've built a lot of them, but it's just out of my own curiosity about life and people and how people, best practices about all of it.
Well, you go above and beyond the weekly facilitation of it, because you do have also a forum, a community, right, of all the people that are having this program, and you meet on a consistent basis to kind of throw around ideas and kind of collaborate and have this kind of roundtable setting. And so obviously people that are facilitating it, getting access to the training material from Lance, you also have that group of individuals. So I don't know if you wanted to quickly talk about that, Lance, because I think the resource is one thing, but having a way to develop it and talk amongst the group that is actually facilitating it would really be beneficial to anybody that's looking at this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the problem that when I started with this, when we started going out to the chambers, was chambers don't have a lot of extra time. And I was asking something that was virtually impossible. I was asking a chamber of commerce to pull off a weekly meeting, and they're already stretched for resources. So the only way I could make this happen was I got to do all the legwork. I got to make this simple to deploy on their end. So, what we do is we do the same thing over and over again, so we can have routine, but there's a handout that has all the questions on it. I put out a 5-minute video that gives the rules, and then they just get together and they do that. But there's no, it takes 15 minutes maybe to prep for a 1-hour conversation, and then they're done. And that's it. They don't have to do anything else. They don't even have to plan for the conversation. They play the video and just act as a host. So one other thing I want to mention real quick, though, while we got a few minutes, is we have this bigger thing called Be a Force for Good. And that's, even though we're trying to share best practices, ultimately we're trying to build a group of people that are trying to make a positive impact at their work, in their community, and in their families. So that's the higher level that we're trying to truly make an impact on society. And we're doing that one group and one person at a time, where it's not just about being better at work or even being more motivated. It's just, hey, how can we make this planet a little better?
Yeah, I think it's going back to the basics and really talking about different topics that relate to everybody, not just a manager, not just a frontline employee, a CEO. It's kind of like those topics that everybody can learn from. It's not just like management training or, how to be better at this. It's a very broad concept, but it's simple and it's basic, but it's very impactful. So again, I really think people that do not have a great training approach should definitely consider this and just talk to Lance. Like I said, the secret code for everybody that is, watching it, I'll pull it back up again, because this is a $500 value to the first 3 people that contact you after this show. So if someone is watching on demand, maybe Spotify, later today, I'm going to put it up on Spotify. So anybody that does watch this, it's the first 3 people that contact Lance with the secret code SUGAR. So anything else you want to add, Lance, before we get off, or any other comments that you have?
No, I just really appreciate being on here. Appreciate the opportunity, and really looking forward to seeing this SpeakEasy HR grow. And you put a lot into it, and it shows it's a high quality program. So just really excited for your future in it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really appreciate it's been great to talk to you, and I appreciate you coming on, and so hopefully we can do it again and have you come back on and talk about a different topic that is trending in your world. So again, thanks everybody for watching that did tune in live. Thanks, Will, for some of the comments and making it fun with the envelope icebreaker segment. So thanks for tuning into that. And we'll be coming on again in a couple weeks. I'm going to have the next guest come on, so be on the lookout for the promotion about that coming up. But again, Lance, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you real soon, and have a great rest of your day.